Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Many of y'all who've been rocking with the fellas the last couple of weeks and months know that this Texas A&M program heading into 2024, in my eyes, is one of the more intriguing teams we see heading into the fall. And I think the national narrative around this Texas A&M program, I think for lack of better terms, is flat out wrong. You're hearing a lot of people talk about Mike Elko needing some time to kind of rebuild this program and reload a little bit. And I think that has to do with some of the flashier names on this Texas A&M roster hitting the transfer portal. Evan Stewart, Walter Nolan. I think a lot of Texas A&M fans are sitting there and saying this team is arguably more talented than it was in 2023, but I think more importantly has improved at a lot of those important positions heading into the 2024 season. I look at this Texas A&M team and say, it's one of the more dangerous teams that we see in the SEC. Want to get into a few reasons why I think this Texas A&M team can hit the ground running year one under Mike Elko, and then take a look at the schedule and just talk about some record options for Texas A&M, not necessarily do official predictions on wins and losses, but just get a feel of what the expectations are for Mike Elko going into year one. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys and to the Texas A&M fans. Y'all know I've had a blast talking this program, transfer portal, recruiting, the amount of support you guys have thrown in the comment section. That stuff, it means the world to the boys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Much more importantly, from the Texas A&M fans, I would love to hear from you guys in terms of what your year one expectations are for Texas A&M. I'll give you mine, but I think the best way to get a vibe from this Texas A&M fan base is kind of throwing down your expectations for this Texas A&M record in 2024. And without further ado, let's get into this. And I want to start with reasons why I'm believing in this Texas A&M program. And it largely starts on the defensive side of the football with an elite front seven. And you look at historically college programs that have been some of the best teams across the country. You look at Michigan in 2023, the Georgia Bulldogs the last couple of years. It starts in the front seven. If you have an elite front seven, particularly on that defensive line, you're usually going to have a very good defense. And you look at this Texas A&M front seven heading into 2024 and say, how many front seven units across the country are we taking over Texas A&M? And I think the short answer is not many. And you start looking at this team stopping the run and what the recipe might be for this Texas A&M defense. It's stopping the run on first and second down, getting these teams into obvious passing situations. And I think this Texas A&M defensive line from a pass rush standpoint might be one of the best units in the country. Now, you look at stopping the run, bunch of heavy-handed defensive linemen, Torian York at the linebacker spot. They were good stopping the run last year. There is no reason to believe that this Texas A&M run defense won't be very good in 2024 as well. I think what excites you the most is what this pass rush unit can look like for Texas A&M. You're bringing a guy like Nick Skirden. As a Big Ten fan myself, and I'll say it as a Michigan fan myself, I don't know if you saw a better defensive lineman across the Big Ten last year than Nick Skirden coming over from Purdue. You take a look at the numbers, a 22% pass rush win rate, 28 quarterback hurries, dominant against the run, very good against in the pass rush. Then you look at a newcomer in Cassius Howell, who, I think kind of flies under the radar just because he's coming from Bowling Green. You take a look at his pass rush numbers, there's an argument that he's one of the best pass rushers on this Texas A&M program as well. A 23% pass rush win rate, 27 quarterback hurries. Cassius Howell has a little bit of a different flavor than Nick Skirden or Shamar Turner or Shamar Stewart, some heavy-handed defensive ends that really can collapse pockets. Cassius Howell is basically a Ferrari coming off the edge. He can attack tackles athletically, beat him on the outside shoulder. Cassius Howell, Nick Skirden comes into a Texas A&M defensive line that I already think was a really good pass rush unit and just adds kind of some more weaponry in that unit. You look at Shamar Turner, 26 quarterback hurries, a 13% pass rush win rate. Shamar Stewart, 19 quarterback hurries, a 15% pass rush win rate. And all guys that are kind of versatile. I mean, you can play them at the 3-tech, you can play them at the edge. And if you can get teams into those third and long, obvious passing situations, kind of mix and match what this pass rush unit is going to look like. Maybe slide Shamar Turner on the inside. I just don't see many offensive lines that can deal with the firepower that this Texas A&M program is going to have in the pass rush. And that is not even to mention potential steps from guys like DJ Hicks going into year 2, Gabriel Brown-Ladindi only going into year 3. Look at this Texas A&M front 7. Yes, they're going to stop the run, but I think more importantly, they're going to be able to get after the passer at an extremely high level. I think the second thing you want to talk about is the secondary. And when I start looking at this secondary, I say I'm not exactly sure what the starting unit is going to be for this Texas A&M program. But what I'm pretty dang confident on is this unit's going to be pretty good. I mean, there's just too much talent. There's too much depth. There's too much competition for this unit not to take a step forward in 2024. You talk about bringing in a guy like Will Lee, who very well could have gone to the NFL draft had he wanted. Marcus Ratcliffe played phenomenal as a true freshman at San Diego State. You don't even see Des Ricks on the 2 deep. He's certainly a guy that to take a massive step going into year 2. BJ Mays coming over from UAB. Too many names that have played good football at the college football level to not believe in this secondary heading into the 2024 year. I look at this defense and say, I think this defense has the chance to be one of the better units, not only in the SEC, but in the country. I think our larger question marks come on the offensive side of the football. And you start taking a look at this Texas A&M offense and what it can be. Many of the Texas A&M fans know, if you've been listening the last couple of weeks and months, I am a massive believer in Connor Wigman. You go back to the first 4 games of that 2023 year, he was playing at an exceptional level with pass protection that was far below average in the SEC. I think a big question mark that you have for this Texas A&M team is we know Connor Wigman, at least we're pretty dang confident that Connor Wigman can emerge as one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC. If you can keep him protected up front, that's going to be a massive storyline. And that kind of gets us to one of the biggest questions we have about this Texas A&M program, and that is, can this offensive line put it together in 2024? Now, I think something that's really important to note is Mike Elko brought in some competition on the offensive line, but he didn't make any massive moves to this offensive line in the transfer portal. And I think that could tell you that maybe Mike Elko believes in the personnel in this offensive line. And I don't necessarily blame him for doing that. You look at guys like Trey Zune or Ruben Father. We've seen them play very good football at times during their collegiate careers. I think the big question we have is, can they play better as a unit overall? That was the big problem for Texas A&M. You talk about offensive line development. I don't think we saw a worse program in the country than Texas A&M last year with Coach Adazio. You bring in Adam Cushing, coming with Mike Elko from Duke. Adam Cushing, in my mind, one of the better offensive line developers that you see in the country. I think Texas A&M has the personnel to be a very solid unit. I think the big question is, can they put it together? Can the sum of the parts be, or I guess, can the outcome be a little bit better than the sum of the parts? Can this Texas A&M line as a unit play better together than we saw in 2023? They certainly have the personnel. I think we all think that. Can they come together? That's a big storyline. I think the second one is the run game. Now, there's a couple of reasons to believe in this Texas A&M run game. I think it starts with Coach Colin Klein coming over from Kansas State. You look at Texas A&M last year with this rushing attack, it was 88th in the country with only 3.8 yards per carry. You look at Coach Colin Klein coming over from Kansas State, 4.9 yards per carry. That was a top 25 rushing attack that we saw in the country last year. And you look at Coach Colin Klein and say he does a phenomenal job throwing a lot of different run concepts at opposing defenses. Yes, using the quarterback, but more importantly, getting running backs out in space, outside the tackle box, giving them opportunities to make second-level defenders miss in space. And our big question mark about Texas A&M's run game, I'll tell you one thing it doesn't have to do with: the talent in the running back room. I think we have 3 horses in the backfield that can be prolific rushers with the football if they can get their opportunities at the second level. I think the big question is, can Colin Klein manufacture some opportunities for guys like Ruben Owens to get it space and kind of use that elite athleticism that I think we all know they have? And so I think there's some reason to believe with the offensive line development, Coach Klein coming in, that this rushing attack takes a step in the right direction. The last one I want to talk about is red zone offense. You look at Texas A&M, and something that normally we don't talk enough about, because we look at just kind of the yards per carry, yards per pass, how efficient this offense is between the 20s. You talk about winning games in the SEC when the margins are so low. Yes, you have to be able to move the football between the 20s. When you get into the red zone, are you putting 7 points on the board? You look at Texas A&M last year, they were 101st in red zone scoring. You look at Kansas State with Coach Colin Klein, they were top 20 in the country. And so can this Texas A&M team be a little bit more efficient in the red zone, keep putting up those 7 points? That's another massive storyline for this Texas A&M program. And again, reason to believe that they could take a step in the right direction in that department as well. Now, I think the most interesting conversation is taking a look at this Texas A&M schedule and, kind of getting a feel for what the expectations are for this program. And I think there's not a bigger game across the country week 1 than Saturday night in College Station, August 31st against Notre Dame. If this Texas A&M team can beat Notre Dame, I think there's a lot of reason to believe that they're sitting in 5-0 hosting Missouri October 5th, right? You look at McNeese at the Florida Gators, which will be hard to play in at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, but if Texas A&M beats Notre Dame, I think Texas A&M will be a favorite in that game. Bowling Green and then Arkansas at the neutral site. If they beat Notre Dame, they're favorites in all 4 of those games. Now, we're going to take a lot more dives into that Notre Dame game, but if there is one reason to believe in Texas A&M winning that football game, it's the front 7. Because you look at Notre Dame, they're starting 2 new tackles, a new quarterback. They're going on the road to one of the most rowdy environments in all of college football. The snap count is going to be really difficult for some young tackles for Notre Dame. And then what do they have to deal with? They have to deal with guys like Nick Skirton, Cassius Howell, Shamar Turner, Shamar Stewart coming off the edge. I think Texas A&M can really disrupt what Notre Dame's trying to do on the offensive side of the football at home week 1. And so that game is going to tell us a lot about what the expectations are for this Texas A&M program. And if you can win that game at home, be 5-0 hosting the Missouri Tigers, which will probably be a top 10 team at that time, I think Texas A&M's off to the races, because you start looking at the rest of the schedule and say, all right, you get a bye week, then you go on the road to Mississippi State. That certainly should be a win if you're beating a team like Notre Dame week 1. You get LSU, but you get them at home. I think that's absolutely massive. You go on the road to South Carolina. That should be a win, especially with South Carolina's offensive line. Bye week, New Mexico State, on the road at Auburn, and then you get Texas at home again to finish out the season. You look at the 3 biggest games of this season, really the 4 biggest games of this season: Texas, LSU, Missouri, Notre Dame. They're all coming at home. And if you can pick up that win week 1 against Notre Dame, I think they have shots in all of those games at home as well. And so this Texas A&M team, again, a lot of people are saying, all right, maybe a year 1 rebuilding year for Coach Mike Elko. I look at not only this roster, but with the schedule and say, I think this Texas A&M team can be extremely dangerous in this 2024 season. And potentially, if you're sitting at 9-3, 10-2, you are certainly going to be in the conversation for a college football playoff appearance, because if you are 9-3, that means you picked up a win against Notre Dame or LSU or against Missouri or against Texas. I'm really fired up for this program. I think there's a lot of reason to believe that this team is going to be dangerous in the SEC in 2024. We'll cut it at that. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. Again, if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.